Blizzard's Wake, Chapter 8, Outside Grand Forks. There was spring in the air, Kate thought as she got off the empty bus and waited for it to turn around in her lane and head back to town. A few occasional snowflakes drifted down out of the sky, like the last few crumbs in cereal box, announcing the end. She was ready for an end to winter and an end to grieving, and especially an end to remembering words better left unspoken. The lane stretched 100 yards from the road up to the house, a two-story white-frame country home with black shutters that, from the outside at least, looked as severe as a Dakota winter. Her bus usually got there before Jessie's, and Kate took her time, her thinking time, as she called it, in her walk up to the drive. To her right, she passed a large piece of ground her mother used as her wildflower patch in summertime. Sunflowers, black-eyed Susans, whatever would take. Each spring, Kate's father used to plow it up, and around May, Mother would take the packets of seeds she had ordered through the catalog and scatter them randomly wherever the wind would go. Sometimes, if the day was warm, she would walk barefoot in the black, fertile soil, her dress and her hair blowing in the wind along with the seeds. Next on Kate's right, up from the wildflower patch, was the plot reserved for Mother's vegetable garden, also plowed in the spring. Mother would decide how much of this ground she thought she could plant and surround it with green wooden pickets. Then she would take a 3-foot-high roll of chicken wire and weave it in and out among the pickets, not bothering to fasten it till it reached the 2 posts that served as her gate. "Anne, that fence wouldn't keep out much as a frog," Doc Sterling teased her once. "Any bunny with half a brain would either hop over it or dig a hole underneath it." But Mother paid no attention, and each spring the waving of the chicken wire made spectators of her family and signaled another season of lima beans. Now Kate had reached the lawn, the lilac bush, the flagstone walk that led past the well, the pump, the wooden cover, and over to the enclosed back porch of their house. The house and the barn were on opposite sides of a large clearing, surrounded by various shields and lean-tos. But if you were to start on the other side of the driveway at the barn and walk back down the lane to the road, all you would find on that side would be a pasture, a rickety windmill, and a horse trough about a third of the way down were the only evidence that animals had once grazed on the land. Doc Sterling had not intended to farm when he bought it. In fact, except for a few acres at the front of the property that he'd reserved for his family, he'd sold the rest of it to neighboring farmers. It was their wheat and hay and soybeans Kate could see from the kitchen window in summer under the huge white dome of the sky. All he wanted, her father said, was a place his wife could grow vegetables, flowers, and his children could race through, and the clover to explore the creek. Every year, as long as Kate could remember, she would look out that kitchen window around March at this little piece of the Red River Valley waiting, always waiting, like her, for spring. The last 3 springs, however, had been so sad that Kate could hardly bear them. And now she had a plan. She would take on her mother's project, she decided. Something Mother had never had the chance to finish, and maybe, in the doing of it, she could redeem herself. There seemed nothing left to try. Doc Sterling set his worn black bag on the chair, hung his coat on the hook behind the door, and let out a soft oof. His white shirt wrinkled, his tie askew. It was the evening ritual. If he'd been seeing patients here at home, there was no coat to hang. But there was always the oof. Then, as Kate knew he would, he slowly rotated his head from left to right and right to left, massaging the back of his neck with one broad hand, and sat down at the table. Sometimes he missed eating with Kate and Jessie, and this night Jessie had long since finished his meal and gone upstairs. Even when the doctor had appointments there at the house, they often crowded the dinner hour, so that the opening and closing of doors and footsteps in the front hall and the lingering of voices at doorsteps meant that once again the doctor's meal had to be covered with a pie pan and placed inside the warming oven. The huge cast-iron stove was ancient, passed down from Kate's grandmother. It rested there in the kitchen on its short curved legs, with its 4 round lids over the firebox, the top surface extending out to one side over the porcelain-lined water reservoir. Kate and her father resembled each other. Jessie had the same dark hair as his mother, the narrow nose, the skin that tanned to an amber brown in summer. But Kate's hair was reddish gold, and in the summer her face and arms were covered with freckles. As speckled as a hen's egg, her father said. Same green eyes as her dad, same round face, same hair. Except that the doctor's hair was gray at the temples and his eyes had creases in the corner. So, Doc Sterling said, resting his arms on the table, how was your day? The usual, Kate said in reply. All we talk about in Mr. Kramer's class anymore is war. She slid the plate from the oven with the pot holder, lifting the pie pan cover, and set it on the table. Be careful, it's hot. Her father picked up his fork and paused. He gingerly lifted the item on his plate and peered beneath it, silently questioning. Supposed to be chicken pie, Kate said, cringing. That's the crust. Doc Sterling smiled a little. Oh, I thought maybe it was a pancake. I've been working so long, I thought maybe it was breakfast time already. Kate smiled at him and put a dish of applesauce and pan of green beans on the table, then pulled out the chair to keep him company. It was a recipe of Mother's, she said. She was practicing now, talking about her mother as though she were a normal part of everyday conversation. Her father looked pleased and chewed thoughtfully, then swallowed. Not bad, not bad. Crust needs a little browning, that's all. Then I think you'll have it. Haggerty, more a young cat than a kitten now, trotted into the kitchen, crouched by Kate's chair, and sprang noiselessly onto her lap. He began to purr the moment he landed and kneaded her thighs with his paws as he turned slowly around, making a bed for himself. Now, who invited you? Kate said, smiling as she stroked his velvety gray head, and his purr grew even louder. Who on earth called you to the table, I'd like to know, and what makes you think you can paw at my leg and get away with it? Haggerty licked her hand in answer, and then, distracted by the scent of chicken, put one paw on the table and looked towards the chicken pie. No, Kate said firmly. She picked the cat up and held him, paws dangling in front of her. You think you can just jump up anywhere you like, you nosy little thing. You think you own the place. As she drew him fondly towards her, the cat licked her nose and she laughed aloud. Got a tongue like sandpaper, too. Her father watched from across the table. I think we picked the best of the litter, don't you? Mrs. Moore said we could return him and choose another if it didn't work out. I like him just the way he is. Except I wish he'd stayed a kitten forever, Kate said, cradling him in her arms. Look how symmetrical his markings are. White on both front paws and another patch right here in the middle of his forehead. He's beautiful. And you know it, don't you, Haggerty? You just think you're king of the roost. Jesse came into the kitchen in his pajama bottoms, t-shirt, and hoisted himself on top of the water reservoir. The one sure place he could count on being warm without burning himself. Can I have a ride to the rink tomorrow night, Dad? He said. I'm going skating with Sid and Roger. Doc Sterling looked across at Kate. How about you? I've got the tax form to fill out first, but I'll be making house calls till supper time, I suppose. Wouldn't you like to go into town with us? No, I think I'll stay home and listen for the scores from Bismarck. Her father studied her thoughtfully. That's not till evening, Kate. Are you sure? Don't you want to do something with your friends? She told him then that the plan she had been thinking about for a week now, and hoped that she sounded convincing. What I really want to do tomorrow is start the bridge for Mother. See if I can't finish it for her sometime. The bridge, said Jessie. Anne Sterling had been known for the delicate, fanciful creations she had made out of broom straws and toothpicks, which she exhibited and sold at the county fair. In the past there had been a castle, a Ferris wheel, a Victorian house, and a ship, and a birdcage. And a few months before she died, she designed and begun the most difficult of all, a modified replica of the Brooklyn Bridge, with just enough wire and cupboard to support it in crucial places. That's quite a job you're taking on, honey, her father said. I really want to do it, said Kate. Doc Sterling reached for the applesauce and heaped some on a piece of buttered bread. Well then, Jessie, I guess it's just you and me tomorrow. We don't want to disturb the artist in residence. Kate took the cat up to her room and lay on her back, Haggerty content on her chest. She pulled the spread up over them, so that it formed a cape around the animal's head. Little Red Riding Hood, she laughed, and his purr felt like a motor against her rib cage. On the wall beside her bed was a framed photograph of her mother at age 10 and her mother, her grandmother. They were sitting side by side on the front steps of their house, their arms around each other and heads together in a fond, crazy pose. For some reason, Kate had always loved that photo, loved the mischief in their eyes, the shared intimacy of mother and daughter. Her eyes drifted up, back towards the ceiling. Up here, away from her family, she did not have to pretend. Their minister had told her that everyone grieved in their own way. Some people got their feelings out in a matter of months and went on with their lives. Others required several years. It was normal. It was natural. She shouldn't worry about how long it took to feel like herself again. What Kate had not told him, however, or her father or brother either, was that it wasn't just the grieving that upset her as much as a haunting. A feeling of something left undone. The first year after her mother died, Kate, like others, cried a lot. It helped some, but it did not change her much. The second year, she asked her father to plow Mother's wildflower patch, and Kate scattered the seeds barefoot in the deep, dark soil the same way Mother did, but it wasn't enough. The third year, she set up the green pickets around Mother's vegetable garden, strung the chicken wire, and planted tomatoes and corn. And that helped too.
Lane, must
Oops.
Peter ride us, lady?